Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Weekly Waypoint. Today, as you may have noticed, something a little different. We've spent the last 9 episodes, the last 9 weeks, playing various Tony Hawk games, and today, we've mostly played through, the good ones. I was gonna do Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, and we will still do that, I'm sure, at some point in the future, probably before 3 and 4 comes out. However, I'm a little bit burnt out on doing Tony Hawk's Weekly Waypoints, so we're gonna change gears, quite literally, and explore the origins of the Need for Speed series. This is the very first game on PlayStation 1. That's right, we are currently playing Road and Track Presents The Need for Speed. That's the name of the first game, it's not just Need for Speed. Now I know there is a PC version of this game that exists, however I decided to play the PS1 version because it was frankly easier to get hold of, and this is the console I grew up with, and I just think it would be quaint to go and explore PS1 games I never got to play back in the day. Given the era, I'm sure the PC version has slightly better graphics, or at least it doesn't have that sense of the entire world being held together by sticks and tape that most 3D PlayStation 1 games have. Of course, we are playing this with the music turned off so that the copyright sharks do not come sniffing, but yeah, there's clearly going to be an element of this game's flavour missing because of that. I will make sure to go and play it with the music on at some point too. Now, my first Need for Speed game was Underground 1 for the PS2, so we do have a fair backlog of Need for Speed games I've never played to get through for me to check out the history of this franchise. But it does mean that this game was a hell of a step backwards for me, and to be honest, I thought it was pretty rough, at least starting out. I definitely got more used to the game as I played through more of it, but yeah, the turning isn't great, the braking isn't great. It's more about controlling how much, throttle, how much gas you're putting in, how much acceleration. Sometimes it's best to ease off the accelerator when a corner's coming up, because the brakes really don't do shit. I found this game interesting in a few different ways, unexpected in a few different ways, I guess I should say. First of all, there are 2 different types of tracks, I would say. The first is the traditional kind of circuit track you would expect to see, which we are looking at now, and then the other type is more of like a sprint section with 3 separate sections to it. We are going to see those in a moment, but I thought I would open with a more traditional style of track just to show you that yes, they do exist, but it feels like the game is more centered around the more sprint style of tracks, and I guess this is in keeping with the future games formula, because in Need for Speed Underground you would have sprint tracks and stuff, so I don't know if that was a throwback to this or if it's just me overthinking it and it's just a type of racetrack that many games employ. The other thing I found surprising and took me a minute to get to grips with is even when you're racing in automatic transmission, you do still have to put the car into drive. You still have the ability to be in neutral, reverse, or I guess drive, from which the gearbox shifts automatically from there. This means that I did spend a few races, not recorded, just kind of spinning out and not understanding what was happening to me. At the start of every race, I have to remember to put it into drive, and sometimes I'm like a millisecond late and it affects my performance throughout the entire race. I find that a fun quirk to kind of talk about here because it is indicative of the fact that, stuff within racing games hadn't become standardized yet. This was still kind of a wild west in terms of, if you're going to make a racing game, what are you going to do with it? You can kind of do whatever you like. There aren't really expectations yet, or at least not so much as there are today. Oh, it's also worth mentioning I did not include every track in this video because then the video would be far too long. I recorded every track and then just cut to the ones which I liked the most. Some of them, there's one called Rusty Springs, which is just kind of like a circular track in well, I guess a Rusty Springs kind of an area. That is the first track in this game, and I think it is the ugliest and most boring. This game has a total of 8 licensed cars, which I find to be quite quaint. It reminds me of some of my favourite racing games in that era, such as, RC Revenge and stuff. Obviously not using real cars, but I like the idea of a quantifiable car list, where you're like, yeah, I know exactly which cars are in this game and which cars are my favourites. There aren't hundreds. Obviously this isn't objectively better than there being hundreds of cars to choose from, but I just find it cute. But since the cars available are a snapshot of a time, I will read out the car list for you car lovers out there. The page I was looking at has timed out since oh my god, come on, why is the fandom wiki site so shit? Every time. Okay, screenshot it so it can't go anywhere. The cars are the Acura NSX, the Chevrolet Corvette ZR1, the Dodge Viper RT10, the Ferrari F12 TR, the Lamborghini Diablo VT, the Mazda RX-7, the Porsche 911 Carrera, and the Toyota Supra Turbo. And no, you cannot change the colours as far as I am aware. On the one hand, this bugs me because I like a Mazda and I don't like a Mazda in yellow, and on the other hand, it's handy because it means that whenever I see the yellow blur of pixels ahead of me on the screen, I know it's the Mazda that's ahead of me. It's also worth mentioning I only checked out individual races. I don't really know if there's any kind of campaign system to this game. I'm guessing not. I saw an option for a tournament, but I wasn't really sure what that entailed based on some of the UI stuff about it, so I just kind of decided to check out individual races. There might be more unlockable cars, I kind of doubt it. There might be more unlockable tracks. I kind of doubt that too. Ultimately, I am not an expert, I am just checking this game out for the first time. It is kind of fun and wild to look at this game, and look at how this game looks, and then compare it to like Gran Turismo 2, which existed on the same console with the same hardware. But of course we will have a chance to see how the PlayStation 1 Need for Speed games evolved themselves over the years as we check them out in the coming weeks. This retrospective is something I've wanted to do for a while within the Weekly Waypoint, and I'm very excited to finally get underway. Oh, and before I forget, I should also mention that the UI every now and again kept disappearing on various tracks. That did end up affecting my performance on the final track of the video. I don't know why this happened. I don't think I was hitting some button that I wasn't aware of. I think it was just a bug. But for those of you new to the channel or the series who are unaware, we do not just use the Weekly Waypoint to play a game and talk about the game, we also use it to talk about my week and the games I've been playing throughout the week mostly, and some other things too. So without further ado, I took another crack at emulating Ratchet and Clank 2, which is one of my favourite games of all time, just because I wanted to play it, and I didn't want to have to dig out old consoles and try and get them set up with my Elgato and all of that stuff. I just wanted to sit at my PC and play Ratchet and Clank, dang it. So I tried again without much hope that I would be able to, because every previous time I've tried to emulate those games, they have not wanted to play ball. And I could have sworn that I had already attempted to emulate them on this PC that I have had for 2 years now, or so, in the hopes that more power would equal being able to play those games, and I remember being proven wrong. But I don't know what it is. I don't know what changed. I just booted up PCSX2, I put Ratchet and Clank 2 in it, and I can just play the game. No problems, no troubles, I can just play it, and I am flummoxed. I don't know how long I've had the ability to do this, but I am so happy because every now and again, I just want to play through Ratchet and Clank. Specifically 2 is my favourite, but the old Ratchet and Clank games. I really wish they would port those ahead to modern consoles and PC. Obviously, I don't own a PS5, so preferably PC. I think that Insomniac and Sony could earn a decent chunk of dosh if they did that. And I know that there were remasters made for the PS3 which were less than ideal, if we're being honest, because they introduced a myriad of bugs and problems. I have an old video on an old Reddit account somewhere of me playing Ratchet and Clank 2 HD, and I was on, oh god, it's been so long now, one of the final planets with the Yetis. And for whatever reason, when I took damage, Ratchet disappeared and I was left controlling a suit of armor that was impervious to damage. Sadly, I have no footage of this event, but the picture you are seeing in the top left of the screen is a image of it. But yes, I've heard that these games are notoriously difficult to port because of the way they were coded and constructed for the PlayStation 2 hardware, but I still wish it's something that they would spend time on all the same. I would also like a Ratchet & Clank PS3 titles collection. So yeah, this is my first time in a long time playing the quote-unquote PS2 original, if emulated, but it looks and plays just like the original game, although I guess it's probably upscaled based on the settings I've got, but like, you know, it's great. I'm having a great time playing it. I've not got far. I've just finished Mactar Nebula and I'm having a good time. You'll probably see some clips show up in a future miscellaneous shenanigans video of my time playing. I also, you know, I'm tempted to do some kind of like silly playthrough, like a wrench only playthrough, and like have it be a series on the channel. I don't know, I want to do something with Ratchet and Clank someday. Many years ago I did try to do a let's play of the first Ratchet and Clank HD, but unfortunately I think the video files got corrupted or something, or like the audio was constantly going out of sync, and it just completely demotivated me to go back and continue doing that series. But yes, definitely something I want to do. Just as a side note, by the way, I had to go to my old Reddit account to get that picture that I showed you earlier of Ratchet and Clank, the bug, and I've just been scrolling through some of my old posts and having an unexpected nostalgia trip. I was very active in the Minecraft Pocket Edition subreddit, and some of those posts are cute. Speaking of Minecraft, I've been continuing to play a whole bunch of it this week with my friends on that realm I mentioned. I also used Microsoft reward points to redeem enough Minecoins to grab this thing off the marketplace, which is a port of a Java Edition mod, which is called Waypoints or Waystones or something like that. It's a cheap and basic teleportation mod where basically you can use ender pearls and stuff to create these little waystones in your world that you can teleport between, and those have always been my favorite kinds of mods in Minecraft, just things which make it so that you can, you know, get around the world easier or understand where you are in the world easier. I always like a minimap mod in Java Edition. I don't know if any of those exist on Bedrock. And the marketplace in general on Bedrock is something I used to be super grumpy and grouchy about, but it's something I've kind of softened on in recent years. Like, looking through it, there's some stuff on there which just won't be mods on Java Edition. They will only ever be Bedrock things on the marketplace, and you're basically paying the mod authors. I know some of it goes to frickin' Mojang and Microsoft and all that, but there's some cool stuff on there. I could honestly see myself grabbing in it. It's not just like, oh, I uploaded my world to the marketplace and I'm charging £5 for it. It's like people adding like proper overhaul mods, like one of the most recent ones which released was an overhaul to the end which added a ton of different biomes and stuff. As someone who used to occasionally drop money on Fortnite when I was playing that regularly with my friends, I feel like the Minecraft marketplace is definitely something where you'd get more for your money in that regard. And that's not to mention like the official like crossover things they do with like the Sonic DLC, and I've seen some Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and it's not just like, oh, an adventure map that someone made. It's proper like there's unique weapons and there's a questing system and all this stuff. So I don't know, let me know, is the Minecraft marketplace like not as bad as most people make it out to be? I'm not about to go start dropping money on it or anything like that, but just my opinion of it might have changed a little bit. I asked some friends of mine who were grouchy about it if their opinions had changed, and they were still grouchy about it, but they didn't really elaborate on why, so shrug. I also found out that for some reason I own an add-on called Phantom Frames, which I guess I got for free because I certainly never bought it, and you can buy these phantom frames or like paintings from this mysterious merchant who appears at night, and apparently you can jump into them and they're like pocket dimensions and stuff. There's just cool stuff like that. And I guess, yeah, there's also really cool Java Edition mods, but they're different separate things of content, if you know what I mean. Now, last week I mentioned that I had bought Triangle Strategy, which is the thing that they made after Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, which is an SRPG. It's a little Fire Emblem-y, it's a little Final Fantasy Tactics-y. I haven't actually put too many hours into it yet because it's the kind of game that you've got to sit down with for long chunks of time. For instance, during one of my working days this week, I sat down with it, I played it for an hour, and while I am happy that it has a lot of narrative and I am here for it and it is something that I would rate positively about the game, I was slightly bemused when I spent an hour watching cutscenes and then, well, I didn't actually get to play any of the game that day because I had to go to work. But no, I've been playing more of it, and it's definitely the kind of game I enjoy. I've really not spent that much time with an SRPG before, but I really enjoy moving the characters around the tiles and strategizing, and it feels great when you you know, pull something off and you're like, yes, I moved this person over here so that I could get behind them, so that when I hit them from the front I could also hit them from the back in the same turn, and eliminate them. And I really love that due to there being such an in-depth narrative, you have this familiarity with and care for every character on the battlefield. I think that's something that's only going to make the game greater and greater as I continue to play it. I think the game does run into the ESO problem a little bit though, by which I mean that when you have so much talking and not that much visual indication of emotion and, you know, character movement and stuff, it does tend to mean I'm just reading text with voices attached to it, and my attention does tend to wander a little bit there. Not too much, I'm still enjoying the story and I'm still invested in it, but it does make me wish that maybe they had invested in some, you know, like anime style cutscenes instead. Not for everything, but for some stuff, I don't know. And you might think that weird that I'm calling that an ESO problem when ESO is not a pixel art game, but facial expressions and character movements within dialogue are extremely limited in ESO. Elder Scrolls Online, not everyone knows what I mean when I say ESO. But in last week's video I did mention that I still wanted to spend a little more on another JRPG, as it were, and I ended up picking Star Ocean Second Story R. I've never played a Star Ocean game, but just like with Live Alive, this was one of those games that showed up in a Nintendo Direct and I went, oh man, I would quite like that, but I'm not going to pay full release price for it. And then I found out that it was on Steam like a year later, and it was on sale for like a fairly cheap price. I think it was like 20 quid, and I was like, fuck yeah, I'll get Star Ocean Second Story R on Steam. Try saying that 5 times fast. This one, for those of you who don't know, is a JRPG with more of a sci-fi twist. It's very Star Trek to the point where it almost feels like a bit of a parody of Star Trek, even though it's not trying to be funny. But the combat is actually action combat instead of turn-based, which is refreshing until you end up going up against a boss which is surprisingly a lot tougher than any of the enemies you've faced previously, and there's nothing you can really do, although I guess that would happen in a turn-based game too. So I basically did an optional side quest, except it's not really a side quest because it's like a branching path of the main story. I now have to complete this before I can continue the main story. And yeah, the boss just kicked my ass, like to the point where I'm like, nothing else was even difficult. I wasn't even taking hits, and now I can't even beat this guy, or these two people, I forget. So I've hit a point where obviously I need to go and grind, and I've gone, I'll just play something else. And that's something else, I know, I'm terrible. That's something else, we've come full circle, was Dragon Quest III HD 2D. When I last put that game down, I had just finished the Grand Pyramid of Ibis, I believe it's called, which is kind of a difficulty hump, it seems, where a lot of players seem to fall off. I follow the Dragon Quest subreddit and I see posts about it occasionally. And there's a bunch of optional chests which you can go on and open, and every single one triggers a random encounter. And so I had stopped there and wandered off, and I've wandered back and I've continued playing, and yeah, I guess I'm just in the mood for these kinds of games right now. You're not really supposed to like juggle these kinds of games, but I kind of am. And the thing about Dragon Quest III HD 2D is it's very plot light, which means that it's a fantastic game to play when you're in a Discord call with friends, because you're just, you know, doing dungeons and fighting monsters and stuff, and the nature of the repetitiveness of that is lost on you when, you know, at least half of your attention is caught up in something else. But I do need to get back to Star Ocean, because I was really enjoying that world and story until I hit that wall. One more minor criticism of Star Ocean before we continue though. I'm a little bit intimidated by the attribution point system, because it's also tied into the profession system, and I don't know what to give who or what to invest in, or if I give someone points to make them better in combat, will it screw over the profession they're supposed to have, and vice versa. It's definitely a relic of the original game, I think, and it's a little unfortunate. Now, I warned you last week, I am currently in that phase of my gaming attention span where I'm playing like 50 different things at once in small bursts. So I'm also still playing World of Warcraft: The War Within retail. I still haven't checked out Undermine. I still have not checked out the latest narrative patch. I just don't really care about it, as we've been over several times before. But I did start playing the Dalaran kind of like epilogue questline, or whatever you want to call it, that they introduced in probably 11.0.7. For the most part though, I've just been making use of that world buff, which grants 20% extra XP and random gear drops and stuff when you're leveling through Khazalgar. And I finally have my first max level alt of the expansion, Atraxes, my evoker, my Drakfir. He is finally max level, and I have promptly stopped playing him and moved on to leveling someone else. I might as well make use of the buff while it's active, right? What's hilarious is a few weeks ago I had a week off and I played like maybe 1 or 2 different games during my week off, and now I'm back to work, and I've even had a busy week at work. I've done more hours than normal, and I'm here telling you about like 5 different games I've been playing this week. Such is life. It doesn't help that we've got some upcoming game releases that I'm also fairly excited to check out. First up, coming out in just 3 days, if you are not willing to pay the stupid quote-unquote early access tax, Doom The Dark Ages, which I'm excited to check out despite not really having played much of Doom Eternal. This is, I'm assuming, a prequel, but if not, the story in Doom isn't all that important, although I do like the lore. This one's launching on Game Pass, so I will probably check it out when it comes out. I'm in an awkward phase, though, where I feel like Series S can't really perform games the way that they should be performed, or I guess displayed nowadays, but also I have very limited space on my internal SSD on my PC, and I don't think that new games run very well on my external SSD, so yeah, I don't know where I'm going to install that to, or how I'm going to check that one out. I'll probably try on Series S just to start with. Also, Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, is coming out fairly soon, in a few weeks, and I'm so excited about that game. While I never finished it, shocker, I do love the original Fantasy Life game on 3DS, and this looks like such a fun expansion of that concept and world. Finally, the last thing I want to mention is that the Gex trilogy just got its release date of June 15th. I'm going to check that. June 16th, my apologies. Which should be right at the very tail end of my week off. That's the second week off in a row that's happened to me. That is tragic. But it is almost tail time once again, my fellow Gexual beings. They got Yoshitaka Amano to do a really sick art piece for it, which I think is hilarious. Anyway, that's all this week, I think. Thanks for coming and checking out Need for Speed with me. Come back next week for more. I will see you then.
Congratulations! You've got a top 10 time for this track.
Oh my god.